Okay, we need a little background for this one. So my extended family holds an annual Christmas party like a week or two before Christmas where, as a bit, a family member arrives to the party dressed as Santa Claus and does the whole "what would you like for Christmas" bit, and, at least for like the youngest 2 or 3 generations of the family, hands out gifts. We all put up with it because, hey, early Christmas gifts. Now these gifts are usually either generic or what I like to call safe gifts. Case in point, I received a number of video games from the family Santa, and pretty much every single one was either a sequel or part of the same series as something I already had or was playing. And, well, let's just say these were best described as a bit hit and miss. Some games were fine, some were meh, and in one particular case was tragically bad. But we don't talk about that. There was one case, however, that, despite being a very harsh cover to judge, turned out to be easily one of the most exciting and enthralling gaming experiences I've had in giving an unfamiliar theme a chance, with Rise of Legends. Hey everyone, I'm the Compulsive Gamer, and welcome to Side Quest, the series where I go on tangents that didn't quite fit into the other videos, but still wanted to talk about. After talking about Rise of Nations in the history games that got me into gaming, I felt I would be remiss not to mention the science fantasy spin-off sequel, Rise of Legends. With the official title being Rise of Nations, Rise of Legends very much stands on its own, and if I had to categorize it, Legends would be an honorable mention for strategy games that got me into gaming. Alright, I try to make these videos short and less structured, but man, there's just so much to talk about with this one. From the unique world to the historically inspired asymmetrical factions, to the story that's so hammy it's good, Rise of Legends really pulled out all the stops in creating a genuinely unique experience, while also still feeling like Rise of Nations under the hood. There's so much I could talk about, but there are other videos on Rise of Legends that already do a great job talking about the game, so instead, I'll focus on the bits that I found the most interesting and still draw me back to this day. First off is the incredibly fleshed out asymmetrical factions. Compared to Rise of Nations' extensive list of nations, Rise of Legends comes with only 3 factions, but each is so unique in both aesthetics and mechanics that they are more than enough to ensure exciting matchups and gameplay. The Vinci are a steampunk and clockwork-based civilization inspired by the inventions and designs of their namesake, Leonardo da Vinci. From towering metal automatons to a unique research system, the Vinci allow for a diverse and customizable gameplay experience, one that can be geared to military or economic playstyles. The Aline are a magic-based civilization inspired by Middle Eastern mythology and imagery straight out of 1001 Arabian Nights. Floating cities, giant mythical creatures, and a focus on the elemental set the Aline in stark contrast to the Vinci, while still holding enough similarities to make switching between the two factions relatively easy. Finally, they're the Quat. What? What do you mean I'm mispronouncing it? The civilization is clearly inspired by historical Mesoamerican civilizations, and the correct Nahuatl pronunciation would be Quat. Alright, you know what? Fair. Technically speaking, if we're being pedantic, which I am, I should be saying Vinci. However, yes, in the Rise of Legends universe, the characters incorrectly pronounce them as Vinci and Quatl, so fine. But yes, the Quatl are clearly inspired by civilizations such as the Aztec and Maya. The civilization is supplemented by otherworldly technologies and entities, with a sort of techno-magic hybrid aesthetic. The mechanics behind the Quatl are the most drastically different from the other 2 factions, and so are a bit more difficult to get into, but still offer a fun and unique gameplay experience. Technically speaking, there are other factions than the main 3 that further flesh out the game. Throughout Rise of Legends maps are a collection of neutral factions, most of which align in some way with the 3 main factions. From the Vinci-adjacent Condottieri, to the Dark Aline Glasswalkers, to the Berserkers of the Tundras of Io. These neutral factions add spice to the already well-rounded unit rosters of each faction, and in some cases have neutral points of interest that can be acquired to continue producing them to supplement the player's army. On that note, the way that Rise of Legends restructured its building and territory mechanics really set it apart from other real-time strategy titles, including its predecessor. Unlike other RTSs, where you have complete freedom to place structures, or even like in Rise of Nations where economic buildings are limited to where you build cities, Rise of Legends doesn't even allow you to construct cities. Instead, each map is littered with neutral cities and other points of interest that you must capture and assimilate, either via trade or by force. The result is that the maps are far more structured than your average RTS, with specific choke points and avenues of approach. In some ways, the city system in Rise of Legends can be thought of as a pseudo-RTS MOBA. Ugh. And as I said, there's also a number of smaller capturable points of interest that vary depending on map type. These include sites that allow for the creation of aforementioned neutral faction units, like the Condottieri camps, or other unique structures such as laser cannons. And while we're at it, we have to talk about just how breathtaking these maps are. There's little detail strewn throughout the various backgrounds and impassable sections. In the quieter stretches of gameplay, combined with the soundtrack, the game can be downright atmospheric. And yep, you already know. The Rise of Legends soundtrack follows the maxim of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Whether it's the more soothing tracks like Lenore's Ambience, Long Version, or Main Economic, or the faster paced ones like some of the winning tracks, the Rise of Legends OST harkens back to some of the best of the Rise of Nations OST, just enough to create a connection, but are also still original enough to stand on their own. Speaking of which, let's have a quick chat about leitmotifs. Okay, as I've said before, I have no professional musical training, practical, theoretical, or otherwise. I just really like music, and video games are a rather unique medium that music has to fit into, being that it has to be exceedingly reactionary compared to other mediums like cinema or for general consumption. That said, after some quick Googling, I believe I've landed on the appropriate term for what I want to talk about. So, to my understanding, leitmotifs are recurring musical themes that are specifically attached to a character, place, or idea. More often used in, say, cinema or television for identifying a character or group of people. Think the quick progression for the Fire Nation from Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's similar to a theme song, but whereas a theme is much longer, a leitmotif is meant to be very short, even a few notes. So in this case, the 6-6-9-5 note progression that forms the basis of the Age of Empires theme that's present throughout the entire series is a perfect example. They changed it. Why? Why would they change it? I don't know. Why? For the original 3 games, it was nearly the exact same progression. And then they changed it. It was going to work so well with this bit too. Look, there's 4 distinct progressions. It would have been one for each game. But no, they had to change it. I mean, like, it's there, sure. But where each other iteration tweaked it a bit, this time, it's just missing too much. It's missing the essence. It's missing the soul of it. Anyway, moving on. It's interesting that, on the surface, it seems that early on developers don't set out to establish a main theme. Instead, they pick the one that seems to resonate the most after the fact. Just look at the Age of Empires theme. Sure, it's present in the opening movie, but it's not put out front in the title screen or anywhere else. Meanwhile, Rise of Nations doesn't establish a main theme at all. But you can bet your keister that by Rise of Legends, Big Huge knew exactly which specific track they wanted to use as their main theme. It's pretty obvious when opening Rise of Legends that Across the Bog and its 8-note progression won out as the intended theme. However, I wasn't aware just how blatant it was when I mentioned it in the last video until I dove into the Rise of Legends sound files. While most of the tracks are associated to different characters in Rise of Legends, one set stands out and may be confusing at first, but with a little recollection, the ones headed with the letters ATB should make sense. The Across the Bog progression is everywhere in Rise of Legends. From the Big Huge game logo, to the intro, to the main menu, it's everywhere and I love it. The rest of the OST is solid, with a few other leitmotifs spread across a number of tracks, and many accentuating the fantastic yet surprisingly chill vibe during the build-up periods of the game. Finally, there's the story. This makes up the game's campaigns, which themselves do well to serve as introductions and a means to familiarize the players with the different mechanics of each of the game's factions. What really defines it, however, is just how basic and hammy it is. It's simple enough to follow without requiring immense world building. If I'm being honest, a lot of the lore is kind of passed over, and the pace leaves a lot behind unless you're explicitly looking for it. But for the most part, the good guys are the good guys, and the bad guys are the bad guys. And I'm just happy that I can denounce Venice even in an alternate universe. The campaign is really all about introducing the player to the game's 3 factions, with each faction getting its own chapter. All the while, the player gets to face off against some unique scenarios and units. The campaign also expands on the hero mechanic, not only introducing numerous minor heroes, but also a research system for buffing hero skills, and an adjacent system for unlocking upgrades for units and buildings. All that said, I probably spent equal amounts of time playing both the campaign as well as playing random maps, with some wild matchups and challenges. There's just something about Rise of Legends' aesthetic and feel that really drew me in from the get-go, even despite not initially being impressed with the cover and the idea of being faced with a more fantastical setting. I'm glad I gave Rise of Legends a chance. Otherwise, I would have missed out on a great sequel to one of my favorite games, while also teaching me to not judge a game by its cover. I'm lucky that I still have my physical copy too, because as of this recording, Rise of Legends doesn't seem to be available on any of the major gaming sites, although there is a petition to get it on GOG. I do hope Rise of Legends makes its way to Steam and GOG at some point, because others really deserve to get to play it. Anyway, I'll see you in the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See ya!